and you build a relationship, and you don't just walk straight into the sales pitch. I mean, it has to be a mutual agreement and understanding, and just be upfront and honest.
The color of a black and white sales canvas is always grey. And holding the APAC regional paintbrush is Chenille Nana, a person who knows that the brightest and best sale is waiting off the canvas.
It's great to have colleagues come to me and ask me about these solutions that we've provided or that we've offered to customers. And I think it's fulfilling in a way.
I'm Chika Eloy, and this is a conversation designed for BCD people with BCD people. On this show, we're running through the diverse cultures of talent at BCD Travel, and we're showcasing our most confident self-colleagues. So come on, let's go have some fun as we explore the different functions, spaces, faces, and the complexities across our world of BCD.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A World of BCD. And today I'm really excited to introduce our very first APAC guest on the show, Chenille Nana. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Chika. Great to be on.
And we're excited to have you. Maybe, Chenille, you can just start off by introducing yourself. Start off where you are in BCD, what is your role, and maybe where you came from.
Okay, sure. I'm Chenille. I'm based with the APAC, so the regional salesperson for APAC. I look after or work in 18 countries within the Asia-Pacific region. And, small to medium enterprise is what I focus on, bringing in profitable business for BCD.
And we are stoked to have you on the team out there. And it was great to meet you on my last trip out to Singapore. So you said 18 countries. What would be your top 3 to 5 countries out there in APAC?
Wow. So Singapore definitely, because it's a hub for most companies in Asia Pacific. So Singapore, very important key market. I would think China, extremely important based on the sheer volume and size. India, extremely important as well. And then we have Australia, which is also a very important market to us as well.
Lovely. And in your transition, you didn't actually come to the APAC team in sales from a TMC. And maybe you can speak a little to the strategy behind that, and why do you think that's important in the region today?
That is correct. I did not, or prior to joining BCD, I did not have any TMC or travel experience. So you can imagine the learning curve was extremely steep, 90 degrees all the way. I think the strategy behind it was because we constantly work with the same kind of people in the industry. It's a very close-knit community in the industry that people tend to look at things from the same perspective. And when I was going through my hiring process, the hiring managers and the people who I was speaking to were kind of looking at things from a different angle. Maybe coloring out of the lines a little bit, and just being creative, I guess, in the whole sales process, and just being fresh in everything that we do.
And what's interesting in my work with some of the talent, the fresh talent that's coming in without experience, sometimes we run into walls where people in the industry that have been here for a long time turn to the people that are coming into the job at BCD and say, okay, let me now educate you on what you need to know, versus you being education to them on the inside. How has that experience been ringing with you since you've joined? And maybe you can speak to that for a second.
When I started, it was obviously me leveraging off my colleagues for almost everything that I needed, because being new, and especially to the industry itself, it was very, very overwhelming. And and now it's great to have colleagues come to me and ask me about these solutions that we've provided or that we've offered to customers. And I think it's fulfilling in a way.
That's so refreshing, Chenille. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's a very unique market out there in APAC. So for somebody like myself, or many of the listeners that are tuning in today that are not in sales, and for you that's come from outside in, maybe you could give us a mock example. What does a salesperson actually do during a standard month? Are you doing a lot of research? Are you actually talking to existing customers? Like, what does a salesperson at BCD do?
Being a salesperson, you got to wear many different hats, because you have to speak to potential customers. Those are your prospects. You're dealing with customers who you've just won recently because they're going through the implementation phase. You're dealing with prospecting for new business, new leads. You're attending networking events. And in this industry alone, there's just so much that happens. It's ever evolving, and you need to just stay abreast and up to date. A salesperson strong is just the product knowledge and the ability to build trust with the customer.
So again, from a naive standpoint here, I would say that I'm pretty good with people, but I always have a hard time, if you will, closing the sale because I built a relationship with Chenille. I'm not going to come to you now and ask for you for something. How do you get over that hurdle?
The thing that you need to be is genuine, first and foremost, and people often shy away from being a salesperson. I worked a bit in the finance industry, and in my very early days, I worked with the insurance part of the business. And, people hear insurance and they run away. But you need to be very open and upfront when you're approaching people. You need to tell them you're in sales. I think that kind of sets the tone. And you build a relationship, and you don't just walk straight into the sales pitch. I mean, it has to be a mutual agreement and understanding, and just be upfront and honest. People appreciate that honesty.
Honesty and authenticity, and I think that the good salespeople have both, correct?
That's correct.
Chenille, let's turn the page for a second when we're talking sales now in the unique APAC market. Biggest hurdles, ready, set, go.
So for me, I see SME as part of a huge chunk of opportunity that's out there. So I'll just take Singapore. I'll pull Singapore out of the region and just give you an example. So 2/3 of the workforce are employed by SMEs. So when I say SMEs, those are small to medium enterprises. And those could be, that could be anything from a startup. It could be a business that's generating close to $1 billion worth of revenue a year. And that's where the opportunity lies. I've been speaking to people in this market space, and they don't have the structure, they don't have the oversight as to what they're spending in terms of company travel. So I see that as, my massive opportunity that's out there. I think there's education that can be done easily, and that's where we win the client because we are offering our services as a trusted advisor is what we aim to do.
That's crazy. Really cool opportunities there. And what do you, when you're approaching a client like these SMEs that you speak to, what is your elevator pitch? What's the biggest value that we give our clients?
So if I could sum it up, I would just ask them the simple question: how much do you spend a year on corporate travel? And 9 times out of 10, they can't answer the question. And boom, that's how you get the conversation going. It piques the interest.
That's great. That's actually a good elevator pitch that we could use as listeners as well when we're selling our people on just what we do.
A lot of times people don't necessarily know what's a TMC, especially in the market space that I work in. People don't know who BCD is. They don't know who any of our competitors are. They usually know who the smaller players are, like the mom and pop travel agencies. So it's an education process as well.
So Chenille, what is the hardest part of your job?
So I would say getting in front of the customer. Like I mentioned before, Asia still has a long way to go in terms of maturity for corporate travel. So, it's getting in front of that right person who's the actual decision maker and actually getting them interested in getting to talk about this, in where they can save money and how they can streamline efficiencies and, raise productivity. So I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Chenille, who do you work with in the APAC sales team? Maybe you can give us a kind of matrix on where everybody goes and maybe who you report to and who you share a lot of work with.
So firstly, I report to Carla Atienza. She's the head of sales for Singapore, and she in turn reports to Maura. So I work very closely with Carla and with Maura. I have a few colleagues that work with me in Singapore. Eric Koo is one of them, who is a director of sales, also for APAC. Jasper, who is also a sales manager. And then I work with my sales colleagues all over the world. So we need to collaborate, obviously, on global deals, regional deals. So I have colleagues all over in China, in the US, in in LATAM, it's everywhere. Oh, I even have close contact with all of our seniors here. That would be Matthew Stewart, who is the MD of Singapore, Jonathan Koh for China, and, up to Greg O'Neill, who is our president of the region. So
you do not have a complicated Rolodex at all, do you? My goodness.
Yeah, so it's literally working with every level in the organization, which is cool because you get to understand every bit of the business. You get to understand how everything works, and you get to understand why things work the way they do. And, we can always add value to that.
And high fives to all of the people you mentioned and all of your sales team and colleagues in the APAC region. So are you ready? Chenille, are you ready for my favorite parts? Well, one of my favorite parts of the podcast, which is our speed round, where I fire 5 rapid questions at you and you do your best to answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, my man. So here we go. Question 1. What was the last app that you downloaded on your phone?
Chipsource Mobile.
Look at that shout out. Because I know that you dressed, you're a suave stylist as well. How long does it take you to get ready? Ready, set, go.
45 minutes.
Woo, that doesn't include hair, ladies and gents. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good a driver are you on the Singapore roads?
11.
Yes, he is. Fill in the blank. Taylor Swift is what?
Wow. That's it, wow.
Taylor Swift is wow. And then as we close out every single podcast, Chenille, what do you love most about working for BCD?
We're still a family-owned company, and I think that runs right through the organization, and we're basically a family. There's open door policies throughout every level in organization. There's camaraderie. It's just great. It's the work culture. That's what I love. We're a BCD family.
And I think you being on this podcast is a complete example of that. Thank you for just jumping on at one random email that came into your box earlier this week. I will include all of your contact details in the show notes for any of the colleagues around the world that wish to contact you. Connect with this homie on LinkedIn. He is a really cool guy to follow. And thank you again for your time. So we appreciate everybody for listening this week on A World of BCD, and we'll see you next week for the next episode. Cheers.